Hey there, data analysts! Thank you for checking out another one of my videos. In today's session we will use Python to load CSV file into Pandas data frame and then load this data frame into a database. I will be using MySQL Database in this case, but you can use others. To code I will use Visual Studio Code, but feel free to use whatever IDE you like. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you like my content. And any questions or anything you'd like to tell me, please comment and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. Let's get started. Okay, so as explained at the beginning of this video, what I'm going to do today is load a CSV document into MySQL Database. You can use this method to load your data into any sort of database. I'm going to be using MySQL on this occasion. So we will code our code in Visual Studio Code, but you can use any IDE you wish. And to show you first, I've prepared a database here, especially just for this. It's called connecting_SQL_tut. And as you can see, there's no tables in here. So if I just refresh this to prove this, as you can see, there's no tables within this database. And what we will do is take the CSV file, write a Python code that will read it into Pandas data frame, and we'll put it into our database. This is extremely useful, especially if you're looking to transform your data in any way before loading it into database. So let's take a look quickly at our data set and what it looks like, what we will be loading. So I'll just open this in Excel, and we can see that this data set has 1,471 rows, and it has 35 columns. Okay, so this is what we are going to load. It's an employee table from Kaggle as usual. I'm going to link this in the description so you can download it and play around with it yourself. But for now, let's close this. There's a few things you need to have installed before you attempt this. And first one is obviously Python installation. So you need to make sure that you have Python installed correctly. And then once you have Python installed, we need to run command prompt. And there's a few things we need to install. First one of those things is Pandas. So what you would say is pip install Pandas if you don't already have it. If I run this, it will say that the requirement is already satisfied because I already have it installed. Second thing we need to install is SQL Alchemy. We'll use that to create connection to our database. And it looks like this. So it's pip install SQL Alchemy. And if I run this again, it's going to say that the requirement is already satisfied. And the last thing you need to install for this exercise is MySQL connector Python. And it goes like this: pip install pandas mysql-connector-python. Okay, so you run this, and for me it's going to say that it's already satisfied. Okay, so once you've done this, what I'm going to do is click new file, and I'm going to click Python. And the first file that I'm going to create is actually a file that will hide my password from you. So it's good practice to do this and call your password from a separate file. So we will look at an example of that right now. I'm going to define function. I'll call this function passwords. This function will take no arguments, so there's nothing in the brackets. And then I'm going to put column, enter, and I'm going to say password equals to, I'm going to say my password here, but obviously put your own password here, and I'm going to change this so I can actually connect to my database later, but I'm just showing you what I'm doing. And then return password. So this function is, there's no equals here. This function is super simple, and its whole objective is to return the password that's stored here in this string. And it's useful due to the fact that I'm going to call this from my main script. I'm going to call this function from my from the separate Python document, Python script. And you can hide away some of the bits of your code this way, and you can also organize your script this way. So I'm just going to hit save as here, and let's just make sure it's in the same folder, and I'm going to call this pass_func. Nice and simple descriptive name. I'm going to save this, and I already have one, so it'll ask me whether I want to replace it, and I'll say yes. So once you've done this, you can then open the second file. So new tab, again Python, and this will be where our main script will be. So once we are in our next tab, what I'm going to do first is get my sections of the documents noted. So first thing we are going to do is import packages requires. Okay. Second thing is database credentials. Then we need to create Pandas data frame where we will put our CSV file, so we can then import it into our database. Next portion will be create a MySQL engine. Then we will define table. So we will define table that the name of the table that we will load the results from the Pandas data frame into. And then we will insert data frame into database. And we will confirm that the script has finished. Smashing. So, what packages do we need to import? We need to import pandas. And we always import that as PD. Second package we need to import is, let's say, from SQL Alchemy. Import create engine. And third thing we are going to import is our file that we've created here. So I'm going to say from pass_func import passwords. So this is the function that we had created in my passfunc file. I'm just going to add a comment. It's good to write comments like this, explaining your code, Because trust me, after you haven't been looking at your code for a while, even if it's simple code, it helps when you open it to see what it actually does. And if somebody else looks at it, it will be very obvious what it does. So documentation is very important. Okay, so now I need to declare my database credentials. And first thing I'm going to declare is host. And in my case, it's 192.168.1.87. This is on my home network. I am running a MySQL server on my home network on one of the devices. So that's why this IP address. My user is root. My password. What I'm going to do here is call my password function. So I'm just going to do this. So this will call my password function from my passfunc file, and as you know, this function returns my password. So that's how you can do this. You can just state your password here if you know that you won't be sharing it with anyone, but it's good practice. Now we need to declare database. And I call it connecting underscore SQL underscore tut. You've seen it previously. And I'm going to declare port. By default, this is set to 3306. For me, this is 3307. So if your database is, it has different ports. If you're using a local host, it's most likely going to be 3306, but otherwise stated. Okay, great. So next thing we need to do is read our employee CSV set into Pandas data frame. So I'll just say df for data frame, and you should use some descriptive names, but because this is a tutorial, I'm using non-descriptive names. So I'll say df, and then I'll say pd read, and you can see that I'm already getting some suggestions here, and I'm going to choose read CSV from here, and then I'm going to open bracket and state the name of my file, and the name of my file is employee CSV. Need to include extension here, and because my file is in the same directory or the same folder as my script, I can just state this. Otherwise, you would have to specify the full path. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is actually run this script. I'll save it as a file and I'll run the script just to see that my data frame is being read and my packages are being imported correctly and there's no issues with my code. And what I will actually say here, just to check that everything is working correctly, is I'll say print df.head, and I'll say 5. What this will do is print 5 top results from my data frame being read, and it will confirm that the script has run successfully and that my data frame has been created correctly and it can be read. I'm going to go here and run Python file in dedicated terminal, and I'll just call this loading CSV into DB, and I'll call this 2 because I already have this file. Okay, great. And as we can see here, our local terminal has opened and 5 top results were printed here, which means that my data frame is being read correctly. It's been loaded into my data frame, but also all my packages have been imported correctly too. So from this point, we will create correct this first, and then we will create our engines, our connection to our database. So I'll say engine equals create engine methods. I'll use a formatted string here, so I'll say F and then quotation marks. This will enable me to use my defined variables here in my string. So what I'll say here is MySQL plus MySQL connector colon 2 forward slashes, and now what I need is my user. So using formatted string, you can use curly braces and use your variables from whatever you define here. So I have my user, and then it's colon, and then my password, and then @ and then host. So this looks strange, but it's basically a connection string. Host and then colon, my port. If you specified port, you need to do this. If not, you can skip port, forward slash, and my database. And make sure this is closed. And this should connect me to my database. Now I will define a table. So I'll just say my table equals new table. So this is simply a name for a table in my database. So I'm just stating it here. And then we will actually insert our data there. So I'll say df dot. We'll use toSQL method. So that's to_SQL. Now arguments we need to use here are name. And in my case, it's my table. I define that here. Then we are going to say connection is my engine. I will state methods. This is optional. I'll state multi. And if exists, I will say replace. And you can see here that Visual Studio is actually helping me and giving me tips here on this method. It's giving me, so for instance, for if exists, I have 3 options here: fail, replace, or append. So it's basically saying, well, if this table already exists, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to fail, so break the code? Do you want me to replace what's already in there? Or you want me to append whatever you are trying to load to the bottom of that data table? In this case, I'll say replace. I can run this multiple times. But in real world scenario, quite often you would say append if you're appending new results. And I will say index equals to false. We don't want index from that data frame being moved to my database. Just be consistent without spaces. Just something that I hate. Okay, great. So the last thing that's left to do is we'll print the statement just to make sure that our script has run successfully. And I'll use formatted string again. Just say data inserted into the, and I'll use my table variable here. So it should read data inserted into the my table, new table, apologies. Once it's run, and this is it. This is the full script. So all that's left to do is Control S to save it. I trust that it's saved, and we are going to run this now. And I can see that my head of the data frame has been printed here. I should have removed that, but it doesn't really matter. It's fine. And I can see that we have confirmation here, data inserted into the new table. So let's open my workbench. And because I haven't refreshed it, you can see that there's nothing in here. But once I refresh it, we can see our new table here. And if I drop that, I can see all of my columns. And you can actually see as well that this operation has tried to choose the best data type as well. So you can see that age is big int, attrition is text, and so on. So you try to use the right data type. You may need to correct this, but for the most part, it's okay. Right, so let's just confirm that I can read from this data table and from this database. Let's just run a very simple select statement. So I'll just say select all from new table. I've actually made a mistake when naming this table, and I should have not included space here. I'm actually going to rerun it. So I'll add underscore here, rerun the script. So we have confirmation that the data has been inserted into the new table. I'm going to refresh this. Now we should have two, one with underscore, one without. Yeah, that's true. So I'm going to right click here and I'll drop this table without underscore. And we can expand this one to see that it contains exactly the same things. And I can now run code as I normally would. And you can see that this time it worked absolutely fine. And I can see that my results are here. Okay, so mission accomplished. Let's stop it there. Thank you very much for watching this. Hopefully it was helpful. If it wasn't, please tell me why. If it was, please like and consider subscribing, because there's more content like this coming your way. Hopefully the session was useful to introduce you to the concept of loading results from the Pandas data frame into a database. Any questions, please comment. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.